Hey, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Fix Your BS, where BS obviously stands for Belief Systems. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Persley, also known as Dr. G. I wrote a book called Fix Your BS because I really wanted to help people understand how your beliefs and your thoughts really turn into things. But I also teach on business strategy. So BS stands for business strategy, and BS stands for balance sheets, because I love business. I love talking about business. And today we're going to talk about something that people forget about, and that's taxes. And we're going to talk about how you can save money on tax strategies, as well as, honestly, increase your bottom line, improve the money that you keep, which is something that you should never do. You should never lose money. That's the first rule of business. So today we have Barbara ShREEhands, and she is the founder of and CEO of Your Tax Coach, the creator of the Write Off Your Life trademarked course, by the way, Write Off Your Life, and the voice behind Life Changing Money podcast. She is a kickass tax strategist, business coach, and all-around master when it comes to wealth and finances. And who doesn't want to be wealthy and have great finances? Barbara, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you.
Thanks for having me. When you kept saying BS, I was like, oh, and it stands for Barbara ShREEhands.
There, it was meant to be. You were meant to be on the program. But
Yes.
that is true. I'm so excited to have you here, because one of the questions I get asked the most is, how can I make more money? I help small businesses. I own a medical clinic. That's how we really turned into an understanding of how I pulled myself out of the treating physician in a medical clinic into the owner of the business, which are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
And people ask me all the time, oh, I need more marketing. I need more, sales. And I go, well, what about the back end? What about the money that you're losing by not paying attention to your tax strategy? And that was something I learned a few years ago of really starting to implement, and the amount of money I've been able to save and increase in my world is dramatic. So I'm excited to talk to you about these things, and give some, really great insights so that the people listening to this can put it into their lives now and start to understand it more.
Yeah, me too.
So how did you get into this game, by the way? How did you get into the tax game?
Well, kind of by accident, as I think most accountants probably do. I didn't grow up being dreaming of being an accountant, but I got pregnant my junior year of college, and I was a marketing business major at the time. And I went to my career counselor and I was like, what major do I have to major in where 100% chance on the day I graduate, I'm going to have a job because I'm pregnant and I need to take care of this baby. And they were like, well, if that's the case, then you need to switch to accounting. And I was like, is there anything else where the day I graduate, I'm going to have a job? And they're like, no. So switch to accounting. Luckily, I was always really good at math. I always loved numbers. I was going to be a stats major. And then I was like, well, the only job I can get is basically working for some baseball team. But so I started in accounting. I luckily got a job at the largest accounting firm in the world. And that's really where my passion for tax started.
That's awesome. I mean, it's one of those things that I would say the average individual doesn't realize, that our duty as American citizens, and in business in general too, our duty is to reduce our tax burden. And most individuals just go, well, I just got to pay the taxes that I'm supposed to pay. And you're like, no, you should look at trusts and LLCs and business structures and get advice from accountants and attorneys and bookkeepers to figure out how you can save as much money as you possibly can on taxes. And people are listening to this right now, and that's a new idea.
Yeah, I mean, taxes are your number one expense in your life. For most people, it can be over 50% of what you bring in. And so it's crucial that people start paying attention, especially business owners. I mean, the Internal Revenue Code was written for business owners, not against business owners, but for business owners. And there's only about 12 pages in the Internal Revenue Code that tell you what taxes you have to pay. And the other 7,000 pages tell you how to get out of those 12 pages of paying tax. So it's really like teaming up with someone that knows what they're doing to strategize with you and help you. And like you're saying, you also need to have bookkeepers and lawyers and financial advisors, and they all need to be talking to each other too. That's also like common in our industry where like financial advisors don't want to talk to us accountants and vice versa. And it's like, but why? Because we can come up with the best plan possible.
So what would advice? So we're really talking about two different groups. You're talking about people that have jobs, and we're talking about people that own businesses. And so the reason why I started to really try to transition from a person that owns a job, which I owned a business, but really I owned a job. Sure. I was a chiropractor. I was treating. And if I wanted to leave and take a vacation, I had to shut the whole place down. And that's where most business owners in America, small business owners, they are key person dependent. They have to shut the place down or it doesn't run very smooth when they're not there. And I was able to transition into the business ownership side, which is I now own and invest into businesses and consult businesses, sometimes for a percentage and sometimes for just a fee, in order to really get the best tax advantages from that. But let's give, like, what advice would you give? Like, what are things that you've seen in the personal realm where people are just, they're missing out on opportunities right now? Is there anything,
like non-business owners?
Non-business owners, yeah, just on the personal side.
Well, I'll say it's a lot harder to save in taxes when you're a W-2 earner, right? It's not impossible, but it's harder. So definitely be maxing out your 401ks or your retirements, at least the match. Now, depending on certain scenarios, it might not make sense to fully fund it. I love Roths, so I think everyone should be contributing to a Roth. And if your financial advisor tells you you make too much money to contribute to a Roth, please fire them because it's not true. There's something called a backdoor Roth that anyone and everyone can contribute to, but it's more work for the financial advisor. So they just tell you, oh no, you don't qualify, you make too much money. So don't let them be lazy, right? They're taking your money. So like they should be doing this kind of stuff. So Roths, if your employer offers an FSA or an HSA, those are really cool pre-tax programs as well. I like an FSA to pay for daycare. So if you have kids like under 5 and they're in daycare, because Lord knows that is so expensive.
Massive.
Basically, you can put like $6,000 a year, which is not very much. I know that's not going to cover daycare for a year, but you can at least put $6,000 a year pre-tax away and have that pay for the first 6K of daycare. And then HSA, you can put over 7,000 into it this year for families, and that's pre-tax for your medical. That's for awesome. Medical stuff.
Those strategies right there, people, they're oblivious to. Now that's on the personal side. Okay.
Yes.
The W-2 employee. What I really got into business for was because I realized the potential and life-changing tax strategies that you can put into place with trusts, LLCs, operating LLCs, as well as holding companies and all of that. So what do you think is something that holds most business owners back from gaining financial independence? Is it a tax strategy, or is it, what would you put into place there? What holds them back from gaining financial independence?
I don't think they know their numbers.
Ooh.
Like most business owners cannot tell me if I said, what's your revenue? They have no idea. Even if I ask them, what was your revenue for 2023 or 2022, which you should know those numbers. Those have already passed. Your tax returns are already filed. You should at least know your revenue.
And you're just talking about gross revenue. You're just talking about gross. Like how much money came into your business.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then ask them what they brought in last month. They for sure have no idea. And then if you don't even know what you're bringing in, how do you know what your net is? How do you know what it is after your expenses? Do you even know what you're paying for every month? So if you don't know your numbers, how can you even strategize, right? So we have tons of prospects coming to us all the time, and they're like, I want to save in taxes. But it's like, but there's something first that has to happen, and you need to know what your numbers are in order to then strategize, because you don't actually know if you're at like a $50,000 loss or a $2 million profit, because those are two very different tax plans, right?
Right. And what's so interesting about that is I get the similar questions on the front end. People come to me for business advice. They say, I want to grow. And I say the same thing. We got, what are your numbers? And if you're asking from the tax strategy side, you're asking for specific numbers and they can't come up with them, you're at a loss. How could you give advice on somebody that doesn't know really where they're at? It's the same thing when we have people come to us, they go, I'm looking for marketing, I want marketing advice. And we go, okay, well, what's your conversion rate on the sales side?
Mm-hmm.
Because you might not need more marketing. You might need a better conversion rate and better sales systems. And they go, well, I don't know. I'm like, well, how many leads are you generating? I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, how can I give you marketing and sales advice and to grow your business if we don't know where the leads are coming from, how they're getting to you, how many they're actually booking, all that data. So it's the same thing on the back end as it is the front end in business. Know your numbers.
Yeah, I love that you brought that up. It's the first, right now when we're recording, it's the first Monday of the month. So I get all my statistics emails from my team. And so we got our marketing email, right, of like total number of subscribers. How many new opt-ins did we get? How many unsubscribers did we get? What's our click-through rate? What's our open rate, right? And if you don't know that, if you're just like, I need more subscribers, well, maybe you don't. Maybe you just need more people that are already subscribed to open. So all of these stats are like so important.
So one of the things that you mentioned was team. Okay. So I think in my experience from coaching people, but also just in my personal experience, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know who to ask for if you don't know what you're even looking for. Mm-hmm. So if you put together, if I'm a business owner and let's say the business is doing $1 million a year, what team would you be putting together? Who would you be asking questions to say, well, how can I even know my numbers and put these things together in order to be able to create a strategy?
So $1 million business owner, if I was to bring an internal team, I would have an admin, a COO, and someone on content, because I'm really big on social media. So any business I invest in, we're going to go hard on social. That's internal team. But in terms of $1 million business owner, like who do you need on your financial team?
Yeah.
Super important to have a bookkeeper that's actually getting your numbers to you every month. Then you're going to have a tax strategist, because at $1 million, you could be paying over $500,000 in taxes if you don't plan it right. And have your tax strategist look over your bookkeeper's work, because bookkeepers don't know jack about taxes. So your numbers could look right to a bookkeeper, but they might not be right tax-wise. And you should have a financial advisor, because if you're bringing home that kind of money, you can't just have lifestyle creep and spend $1 million a year. You need to be investing or you're never going to retire. And that doesn't just mean investing in a 401k. Like if you want to invest in real estate, do that. If you want to invest in oil and gas or crypto or whatever it is, like still have someone smarter than you on your team. Those would be the three first big ones.
That's perfect. And that's so true. And so when you're talking about a bookkeeper, sometimes they'll tell me, well, I don't have money to hire a full-time bookkeeper. I say, well, there's bookkeeping, you can look for a local bookkeeper, because I teach a lot of regional businesses that are service-based. And you can have a local bookkeeper that's part-time, like a retired accountant that's just like, I just want to do some bookkeeping and, put the books together. But I tell people all the time, and tell me if I'm wrong with this, but I say a bookkeeper keeps the books. They tell you, here's the invoices that came in, here's the money that went out, and here's the money that came in. And just here, it's just organized. And then the accountant takes that data and goes, well, here's the strategy that we want to take into account of which category the money should be put in. And then you have your tax strategist that could be the same as the accountant, but you could have a separate tax strategist that goes, how can we make sure that we're spending money appropriately to reduce or eliminate as much tax burden as possible? Would that sum it up for you? Is that something that people could put into play right now?
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Now, I always like to add my attorney into the mix as well.
Yes.
Yeah. When we're talking about anything that we're like, okay, here's the strategy, I like to bring my attorney and go, hey, what does this look like here? Is this something that we should be doing? Can we put a new LLC? Can we take this money and open this up and put that into strategy? I mean, how does that all put in, how does it all go together to put it into play? As far as like when business owners are choosing some of these, especially accountants, because obviously that's what you do and what you've done. What should they look for when they're choosing an accountant?
I always tell people like you need to vibe with your accountant. Like
Talk about that. That sounds sexy to me. That gets me excited. Vibe with the accountant. Yeah.
Like people, I think just pick these like, no offense, but like old men, not that you're old at all, but I'm just saying like it's typically a man. And like, I don't know why, but everyone in the accounting industry is like 70 or 80 right now. I think there was like a boom 70 years ago. But they think it has to be this local person. They think they have to be old because then they're wiser or something. And it's like, but do they really know your business? Like your business, did your accountant really know about chiropractic? Do they know nowadays that, you could have an online store and sell your supplements online? Well, are they advising you about how much sales tax you have to pay on that? And do you have Nexus now in other states because you're selling your supplements to other states? Or you're a business coach and you have a course and now you're selling courses in other states. And so like your accountant has to know your business inside and out, but also like jive with your personality too. So if you're someone that wants every detail explained to you, is your accountant doing that? Or are you the type of person that's like, hey man, I'm like too busy. I just want to know you have it handled. Like, can they do that for you? So like vibe with them. But also they should be bringing you ideas and you shouldn't have to bring the ideas to them. Like, hey, I heard on TikTok that I can write off my G-Wagon. It's like, you should be like your accountant should be bringing those ideas to you, not TikTok, right? Even though I love me some TikTok and Instagram because I'm big on there, but someone that's creative and bringing you ideas and not afraid of the IRS. Like we're here to be on your team and to like go to bat for you, not someone that's telling you like, oh, you can't do that because your chance of being audited is now 1.3% instead of 1%. Like, no.
I love
I don't know.
As the business owner too, I used to like, so what you just said is so true. They should be bringing you ideas. Now, I want to clarify that because the business owner should be the one that is making the decision, but they have the advisors, their attorney, their accountant, their tax strategist, their bookkeeper. They have advisors that say, based on what I know in my history, here's what I recommend. What's interesting is I used to go to my accountant for business advice. I would say, oh, what should I do here? And I'd be asking him a marketing or a sales strategy. And what I didn't realize at the time was that's not their expertise. I should be going to them for one specific thing and getting their advice and putting it into the whole strategy, as opposed to, well, I'm going to do this thing and I'm going to go ask my accountant for sales advice because they're probably not going to know sales. I'm going to go, hey, I'm thinking about implementing this Instagram strategy. What do you think about that?
Yeah.
Now, what the accountant should be telling you is basically, well, based on what you're telling me, here's the bucket that money is going to go into and how that's going to affect you on the back end of the taxes and the strategy that you've put into place. That's getting the information. Is that something that you see a lot? Now, you're well more versed, obviously, in business than the average accountant and the average tax strategist and the average attorney. But is that something you hear a lot where people come to you and they're like, hey, what do you think I should do here?
Yeah, it's a lot more common with legal advice, right? Like a lot of our clients come to us for legal advice. And although I can probably tell you what an attorney's going to tell you because I've been doing this long enough and I've worked with enough attorneys, and we have enough businesses and all the things, I know what they're going to tell you, but I legally can't tell you. So a lot of times people will ask us like, should I open an LLC in this state or this state, or should I have this or this structure? And it's like, well, I can tell you the tax side of it, but I can't tell you if legally you should have this structure or not. So yeah, it happens all the time. Like we kind of joke that we're everyone's money therapists. So they come to us for any and everything money related, not just taxes, but it's like, hey, I have this like old savings account. What do I do with it or something? And, we're happy to help, but.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you my 2 cents, but hey, that's so true in multiple different industries though. So as you know, I was a chiropractic physician, and I had a chiropractic clinic for 13, 14 years. When we transitioned that clinic into a integrated regenerative clinic, in that transition, that's where I learned all the business strategies. I had to take business courses to understand business, which is what I really fell in love with. I was like, oh, I love investing into businesses. I love earning equity into businesses, growing the businesses anyway. But people, when we transitioned to the medical clinic, would come to me and go, should I take this prescription or should I stop taking this med? I would say, you need to go to the person that prescribed that and ask them how to get off of it or if it's possible. That is not what I do. I can give you my 2 cents that, yeah, you should try to get off any prescription and help your body heal as naturally as possible. But I'm not going to tell you should stop taking it. And it's kind of the same thing. And I think that happens in a lot of industries.
Yeah.
So tell me any, like, I don't know, stories or moments where there was an aha moment where maybe a client, you were working with them and there was a common thing that occurs that you're like, I always ran into this thing. And there was this moment where I went, oh, do you have anything like that you can share with everybody that they might be dealing with right now? Not to put you on the spot or anything.
Well, a lot of people always ask, like, how did you become a tax strategist? Because it's much different than just an accountant or a tax preparer. And when I started at the largest accounting firm in the world, I had clients like Google and Apple and Facebook. I was there when Facebook went public and helped them through that. But because you have such big clients, I was always like, are we really helping them? Like we as the employee at the time really didn't know much about their tax situation. You just know like part of one line on a tax return because that's all you're allowed to know. And so I quickly left there because I was just like, I don't feel like I'm helping anyone or saving anyone money in taxes. So I went to like smaller and smaller and smaller firms trying to like find the thing where I felt really valuable. And so luckily I started working for a firm that had just started doing strategy. So the owner like went to all these conferences and, learning how to save people money in taxes. And he was like, Barbara, you're going to be like the person that's doing strategy. And I'm like, okay, cool. So I get this client and it's a construction client. They're doing like 20 million a year. And I saved them over $2 million in taxes the first year that I was doing strategy. And he was telling me, the business owner was telling me like how much he was going to be able to give to charity from what he saved. And he was building like a brand new baseball stadium for his grandkids' baseball team. That it was like a really, really old stadium. So that's really when first I was like, wow, like saving people money in taxes isn't just saving people money in taxes. It's not this like, oh, screw the government type of thing. It's like, what can you now do with this money and how can it be like life changing for people? And so that's when I was like, I need to do this in my own business. And when we started saving money at Your Tax Coach, like one of our first clients, we amended one of her returns, tax returns, because they messed up. Not that their accountant messed it up. We went back and helped optimize their taxes. So they ended up getting a $40,000 refund. And that same week that the client got the $40,000 check in the mail from the IRS, they had been trying to adopt a baby for years. And finally that week they got a call from the hospital like, hey, someone's in labor right now. It's $40,000 to adopt your baby. Like it was almost to the dollar exactly how much it was to adopt their baby. And it's just like the coolest thing. Like I see the baby now, he's 2, but I see him on her stories all the time. And I'm just like, oh my God, like we had a little part in that.
That's awesome.
So even if you're thinking you might not be able to save in taxes, like have someone look at it, because maybe you have a charity you really want to help donate to, or you have this big life goal or a big life event happening, and it's worth just exploring.
Those are really amazing stories. And, you know, an individual is going to be able to put that money to use way more than the government's going to put that money to use.
Yeah.
You know, a baseball stadium for a kid that maybe leaves a legacy for that person. You know, adopting a child that is going to potentially have a better life by being adopted, and being able to do that simply because of tax strategy and tax savings. And I can't
Mhm.
say it enough. I was rudely interrupted into how important this was when I was in my third year in business. My third year in business, we started to become very profitable. This was 17 years ago, but I had the wrong accountant, and I didn't have a tax strategy. And so
Mhm.
they did the taxes and they said, okay, well, you're going to owe about $10,000. And I went, what do you mean I'm going to owe $10,000? We've been paying into tax, like we've been paying last year. What do you mean? And the sad part was it was too late to go back and
Yeah.
change it, really. There was nothing I could do because it was after the year was over.
Yeah.
And that was when I was, you know, mid 20s, probably 25, and I had a couple young kids, and that $10,000 mattered a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, not that it doesn't matter now, it still matters now, but like at that point, that was this massive turnaround.
Yeah.
And that's when I realized I have to be smarter about taxes and tax strategies and accountants and bookkeeping and attorneys and all of the things, in putting
Mhm.
those things together as a working unit. So let's say somebody has a business right now. What would be something other than putting your numbers together, which I totally agree,
Mhm.
understanding your numbers in marketing, sales, in looking at your operations and how effective they are, and looking at your HR numbers, and is your team effective, and looking
Mhm.
at the financials and getting those numbers together. I mean, what would you point people to look at? What do people miss the most that really like low hanging fruit?
Yeah, the easiest one is their structure. So, how is your business entity set up? And I'll use do you think most people listening are chiropractors, or are there anyone?
Oh, no, no. Just because I'm a chiropractor, yeah. No, I hate people that listen to this are entrepreneurs, business owners. Some are employees that want to become entrepreneurs and self-employed and that sort of thing. But most people that listen to this are really like local, regional, small business owners. They range from, I mean, I work with HVAC people, electricians, plumbers, chiropractors, PTs. I even have some orthopedics people that I
Okay.
work with. So yeah, it's a pretty broad range.
No, that's good to know. So, a lot of trades and a lot of like medical services, which actually those two industries miss the mark so much on their entity structure. So probably, at least I hope, they have their LLC at the very least, right? Because trades and in the medical industry, you're both highly likely to get sued. So that's a
Mhm.
legal thing, nothing to do with taxes. So I hope everyone has their LLCs for protection. But they missed the mark on switching over tax wise to an S corporation. And an S corporation can save you $25,000 a year in taxes per owner. So if your spouse is an owner too, now you can save $50,000 a year in taxes. So, um, again, like kind of like with the lazy financial advisor thing, I also hate when I hear from prospective clients, they're like, yeah, I talked to my accountant about being an S corp, and they just said like I wasn't ready yet, or I didn't make enough money yet. And it's like, that's BS. No matter what you're making, you can save 15.3% in taxes. Point blank. I don't care how much you're making. You can save 15%. Do you want to save 15% in taxes?
Of course, I want to save
Everyone does.
100% in taxes if I can, right? I mean,
Yeah. But the other thing too with an S corp is you're 15 times less likely to be audited when you're an S corp than when you're just an LLC, because most of the time what gets pinged for an audit are personal tax returns, not an S corp return. And um, if you do get audited on your personal return and they see a business on it, like a Schedule C business, the IRS really doesn't look at it like a legitimate business. They see those as hobbies most of the time. So they're going to scrutinize every expense on there a little bit more than if you have it on an actual business tax return and your personal return is separate. So structurally, I think a lot of people miss the mark.
So who would they go and talk to about that first?
Us.
You
Yeah.
guys, all of it.
Yeah.
And by the
We
way, if
can switch them
anybody's
over.
wondering, that's go to yourtaxcoach.com, yourtaxcoach.com. You can learn more about what Barbara's doing and make sure you are informed on how to save as much taxes as possible.
Yeah. And another thing, like what people miss the most is learning how to write off their life, right? You mentioned our course earlier. It's called Write Off Your Life, but it really is that. It's turning what you're already spending your money on into business expenses. So anytime you travel, you can make that a business expense as long as you think about it ahead of time. Anytime you go out to eat, you're likely with a friend, a prospect, someone in your industry, a spouse that's involved in the business, or get them involved in the business so that every time you go on a date, it can be a business expense. So turning a lot of your seemingly personal expenses into business is huge also.
Yeah, because then you don't have to pay the tax from personal gain or earning the personal income, and then use that personal income to actually purchase the item or take the trip. That's sometimes a 30% difference in savings. So if the trip's going to cost you, let's say, $1,000, well, now instead of costing you 1,000, it cost you 700 because you didn't have to pay tax on that 1,000. I love that. That's like little stuff like that is so huge, and people need to learn about that. So everybody needs to listen up. If you own a business, if you have a business structure, you need a tax strategist. And all you have to do is you can look at working with people like Barbara, but I suggest Barbara. That's why she's on here. But you can go to yourtaxcoach.com, yourtaxcoach.com. You can find Barbara on Instagram. You can find her on TikTok. She's on a bunch of different things. We'll have all the links below, by the way. You can just click on those links. It'll take you directly to whatever, social media outlet is your favorite. But it's Barbara ShREEhands, and you can check out the link below. And I'm excited about it. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go through all of your courses just to make sure that I'm constantly learning and improving in my own business structure and understanding. Because the better I get at business, the better questions I can ask to people like you to guide me in the right directions when I'm making those decisions. Should I acquire this business? How should we structure that business? Should we combine these businesses together? Should it be a bolt-on? Should it be something that's totally separate? Do we need a holding company for this that's going to be able to improve? Should we open up a trust? I mean, these are all questions that I did not know 4 years ago. 4 years ago. And I had owned a business for 15 years, for 15 years before I really understood this. So I'm excited. And you have an event coming up in November as well. We will send that out to everybody in our organization also to see if they can go in, because I think it's that important. This is something that doesn't get discussed enough. And I'm so happy to have you on this podcast to talk about it. You've given some absolute truth bombs that people should pay attention to. Absolutely. Is there anything else that you'd like to add as we kind of close this out? Something that, that would help people, some guidance that you would like to give them that's just coming to you right now?
I feel like a lot of your clients might have kids. So I also love to involve kids in the business. You can pay your kids up to $14,600 per year tax-free, as long as it's set up correctly. So if you have kids out there, involve them in your business. They can do social media for you. They can be models in your business. They can do admin work, whatever it might be. We have a list of like 100 jobs on our blog. If you go take a look, that kids can do depending on what age they are, and involve them in your business. It's so easy to make your kids millionaires. And you just have to learn a little bit about this stuff.
Well, thank you, Barbara, for being here. I really appreciate it. And everyone click the link. Make sure you look up Barbara, and make sure you look up all of the tax strategies that she's put into place. If you don't have a business, you need to create one so you can actually earn better income for yourself, but also so you can save on taxes at the same time. It's yourtaxcoach.com. As you know, this has been another episode of Fix Your BS, where we talk about belief systems, business systems, and balance sheets. Really try to give you all the strategies to make your life great in 5 categories: relationships, business, money or finances, health, and beliefs. And I think we had a massive, massive improvement today in your life if you just put some of these strategies into place. Thank you, Barbara, again for being here. This has been another episode of Fix Your BS, where we are helping you create your dream life on your terms. Until next time, I'm Dr. Greg Persley, also known as Dr. G, where I help you build your life.